What's up, everyone? Marvel's newest movie, Black Widow, has finally released, so let's review it. Real quick, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below telling me what you thought of Black Widow. And this is going to be a spoiler-free review for the movie, so if you haven't seen it, you're free to watch it, though I always encourage you to see the movie first. Anyways, let's get right into the review. So this movie marks the return of the MCU after it was delayed for over an entire year, at least the return to the theatrical MCU movies. And so we finally got a chance to check out Black Widow. This movie obviously follows Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson. And so essentially she dives into her past and kind of reunites with her old family as she's getting hunted. And obviously it evolves from there and it gets more complex as the movie goes on. And overall, I'm very mixed on this movie. Starting with the positive stuff, I think this movie absolutely succeeds as a Black Widow kind of spin-off prequel type movie. It was really weird that they were doing this movie after Black Widow, spoiler alert, died in Endgame. But I thought it absolutely worked. It felt the story felt necessary to Black Widow's character, and it was really nice that she got her own movie. And it felt justified. It didn't feel like we were getting a movie we shouldn't be getting. It felt like part of the Marvel story. Obviously, it's kind of its own thing, but it felt like this is a movie we should be getting. And so that was a huge plus for this movie, as that was a big concern heading into it. And probably the best part about this movie, I think, is going to be the addition of Florence Pugh in this movie. She absolutely steals the screen every time she's on. She's easily the best thing about this movie for me. She brings this energy and this charm to her character. I don't remember her character's name, but she's just the best character in this movie. She's a much welcomed addition to the MCU. Her character is really good, and once again, like I said, she just brings a screen presence to the movie, and she steals the screen every time she's on it. And the rest of the cast is also good. Scarlett Johansson's fine as Black Widow, and then David Harbour in here, he's pretty funny, and then the rest of the cast is solid. It's a Marvel movie, the acting's usually fine and stuff like that. But Florence Pugh, to me, stole the show in this movie, and she was a much welcomed addition to this movie. Another strength of this movie is going to be the family dynamics, kind of the family stuff in this movie. It kind of follows their kind of broken family relationships. And when that stuff was on screen, I thought this movie was really good. It was kind of something a little unusual for Marvel. It's kind of more realistic, a little more darker, and I like that a lot. And like I said, the family elements were really, really good. I wish the movie focused a little bit more on them, as it wasn't kind of the central aspect of the plot. But these characters, they had great chemistry together, the main group of characters. They felt like, kind of this broken family, and that worked really well. And then the action in this movie is pretty good. I do have some issues with it, which I will get to. But overall, the action was it looked fine. It was, good Marvel action with some, pretty good choreographed scenes and some really good cinematography and stuff like that. So the action was pretty good for the most part. And overall, this movie is a Marvel movie. It's pretty entertaining. It's fairly easy to watch. And that's a positive for this movie, as it just, you can sit back and watch it like any other Marvel movie. The plot's not too complex. You know what's going on. The characters are enjoyable. The acting's good. The writing's pretty good. It has the usual Marvel polish that makes Marvel so watchable. And that's a positive here for sure, as it just, once again, this movie is super easy to watch. And that really helped you get through the movie. But now moving on to the negative stuff, I do have quite a few negative things. Like I said, I'm very mixed on this movie. First off, the biggest issue with this movie is the plot. Once again, you have the family dynamics in this movie that work really well, but around that, they have Black Widow's hunting this guy who's leading the who's creating all the widows. They're once again the agents that Black Widow are, and she wants to shut that down. For me, that plot just wasn't developed enough. There was 30-second flashback scenes to add to development that we hadn't had prior. And that was just really disappointing, and they just didn't take time to develop this plot or make you care about it. So that really hurt this movie. Every time it would bring up the plot and the main thing that Black Widow is doing in this movie, I just wanted to cut back to the family arc. I wish the plot of this movie revolved around the family rather than the family kind of joining in on Black Widow's kind of mission. So that was really unfortunate, but like I said, the plot just wasn't good. Another issue with this movie, and very unusual for Marvel, is going to be the action was really ridiculous. There was a lot of just it almost felt like a Fast and Furious movie in a lot of ways, with just ridiculous things with people not getting hurt and there were scenes where people would, something bad would happen to someone and they would just get up like nothing happened. That's not usual in a Marvel movie, and it's the way they directed the action, they set up scenes where somebody would absolutely get killed or severely hurt by something, and then they wouldn't be hurt at all. It's you don't even have to set that up. Don't show it that way. And then, I'm not going to have this complaint. But they did, and then, so that just created that issue. So that was really unfortunate. As well as I think the action just lacked urgency and lacked meaning, and just felt very, flavorless, because there was just, you didn't really care about the plot. And that just goes back to the plot. I didn't really care what was happening. The action just, was action to be action. You know, it was like something would happen, then here comes an action sequence. Well, like I said, the action was good, just the stuff around it that made the action scene happen wasn't. So that was really unfortunate. And overall, I don't know if I was the only one who experienced this, but this just feels like one of the kind of most cheaply made Marvel movies we've gotten. There's just a lot of issues in this movie that we don't see in Marvel movies. Like the dialogue a lot of times only served to tell you what was happening in the story. It wasn't very creative. There was just some bad writing, especially towards the end. The final act for me fell apart quite a bit. Even like the CGI in this movie just wasn't great. So there's just a lot of issues in this movie that really you don't see a lot in Marvel, which is really unfortunate. I don't know what that has to do with if this movie had a smaller budget or something. But that was just, once again, very unfortunate and very unusual for Marvel. And then another issue that is actually pretty common in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be the villain was just very lackluster. There was two main villains in this movie. I didn't really care about either of them. Taskmaster was advertised to be this really cool villain, and they just weren't. It was just like, there was just this generic kind of like henchman villain who was hunting Black Widow the entire time, and it was just tragically misutilized in this movie. And I hate that they were unable to create a villain that was actually interesting, and that's an issue I've always have had with Marvel movies for the most part. Obviously, like Thanos is one of the best superhero villains ever, but a lot of times in these smaller scale Marvel movies, the villains are just very lacking, and that is absolutely the case here. And then my last issue with this movie is that I think this movie, once again, it does feel very small in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We knew that going in. And this suffers from the fact that obviously it got delayed a year. I think this movie was going to be kind of the burn off from Endgame, kind of this little like bridge movie to introduce the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But the fact that it got delayed really hurt this movie's significance, because once again, if we got it back in 2020, early 2020, it would have been fine, because Endgame was even a year old at that point. But the fact that it got delayed a year, and in general, I just think this movie feels very, very small within the universe. They just, once again, and that will go to the plot of them, just lack of development. But overall, this movie was really entertaining. It definitely had a lot of strengths to it. It just also had a lot of negatives, in my opinion. And it's definitely one of the more mixed, mediocre Marvel movies, in my opinion. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as some people are making it out to be, which is really unfortunate, because I was actually pretty excited for this movie, hoping it could be kind of its own thing. And I think there were flashes of this movie being its great kind of one-off thing of this kind of spy thriller movie with Black Widow's old family. But at times that just didn't work, and there was just, I feel like, some like directing issues and some production issues that just made this movie really struggle for me. So like I said, I'm mixed on it. I think it's a pretty solid movie, just not anywhere near the quality of the usual Marvel movies. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 and a 70%. And anyways, that's going to do it for my review of Black Widow from 2021. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of Black Widow. Were you disappointed by it? Did it exceed your expectations? I'm definitely curious. From what I've seen, it's a very divided film. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But anyways, as always, thank you so much for watching if you stuck around to the end of the video, and have a great day.